Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brock Beard from Lastcar.info, where unofficially pending the results of post-race inspection, the winner today at Homestead is Tyler Reddick, punching his ticket into the championship with a dramatic three-way battle for the lead with Ryan Blaney and Denny Hamlin. A tremendous race from start to finish. One of the best Homestead races that's been run really with this configuration. And as much as I am absolutely still not a fan of the playoff system, regardless, this was a absolutely tremendous race, even if it was a race, even if the championship had already been decided and it turned out that the race was this tight, it would have been dramatic. A great job by all the drivers involved. It was good to see a nice, clean battle for the finish. Yes, there was a spin that ultimately set up the finish itself with Larson. But again, the long green flag runs in this race. We saw very tight competition at the front of the field. Chase Elliott having easily his best run, I would say, at least since his win at Texas. I don't really remember another time where he's contended for the lead as much since then. Carson Hocevar having a career run out there, being in the top 10 all day. Ryan Preece was very solid in this race after briefly being in the back of the field. Just a tremendous race, my goodness. And then to sweeten it on top of it here, Lastbro and myself picked Denny Hamlin and Reddick to win the race there. So for the second straight week, it turned out to be pretty exciting here on this end too. Just a fantastic event there for sure. So, and again, I don't blame Blaney or Hamlin for being crestfallen. Again, in a battle like that, as close as it was and as crazy as it was, you're always going to have somebody that's going to, get the short end of the stick there. And that's the unfortunate part of the playoff system too, as dramatic as the win would be. You got people that it's like, oh, well, okay, we'll get them next week. But then really you have this one race left at Martinsville where they had a lot of issues with passing. Apparently they're going to do the option tire thing from Richmond for that race. And we'll see how that shakes out, because certainly that Richmond race was great this year. Until the finish. But, again, we'll see how things shake out there. But very, very surprising event here, too. And a track that really, again, it should be the championship. It should be the championship. There's no reason it shouldn't be. I know there were some saying that it should be a night race. I know the vistas are really cool for that, too. But I kind of like it when it's this, this late afternoon deal here and kind of have it ending with like the setting sun there, because you see like how much, even with these cars and the problems that they have, how much, handling can go away, or just how narrow of a tolerance the tire wear can be. I mean, Reddick really working out what ultimately became the best strategy of it, having a pit stop that it felt like, okay, our strategy didn't work out. We needed to have a caution in the closing laps of the race. Made a pit stop, and only a couple laps later, Larson spins out battling for the lead. Now he gets to stay out, and everybody else comes in, and he only has about a 5-lap deficit on the tires. Just incredible. It's incredible that it worked out that way. I think that probably if the caution came out a little bit later, or whatever the situation would have been, Reddick would have just been gobbled up by the entire field and not be able to climb back up there. But we saw just some really, really impressive racing, and it was really, pretty crazy situation there, at the end. So again, we come down to, the penultimate race of the season here. We'll find out what's going to be the story, at Martinsville. We got a ton of news stories to cover here this week. I brought out my Bobby Allison shirt because among the other stories, so we'll definitely talk about that here tonight. We'll get into the Xfinity and the Truck Series action here as well. We'll do some trivia here on here. So we'll jump right into it here. I was thinking probably it wouldn't be a bad idea to actually go ahead and watch the finish again here. Let me kind of pull that, see if I can pull it up on the second screen here. I know Vargas tweeted the video here a second ago, and we'll probably just pull that up there. But let's just watch it again. I think that would be a good place to sort things out. So I'll bring this on the second screen. We'll see if they can get this to work. And that's not working. Let's see if we can get that on back up there. It should be on the screen here. Where is it? We'll keep figuring this out until we can get that working on this end. I know it's plugged in, and I know I see it here. Is it just not showing it on this one? I know I got the audio to work a second ago. Let's see if we can get anything figured out on that. Maybe do the race watch along one. Would that do it? No, that's not going to do it. What is going on here? I played it at start mode. Okay, the audio is working. Why is the video not working? All right, well, we'll figure that out here as we can here in the meantime. But regardless, yeah, again, just a tremendous, a tremendous battle there to the end of the race here. Let's see. We will go into all of that. Let's see. Okay, hang on. I don't think it'll do. Is it doing it from this? Is it doing that? Can that do work? No, that doesn't work either. I don't know. We'll get the technical part of it figured out here in the meantime. But regardless, no doubt that's going to be played plenty of times here in the days and weeks to come here through the rest of the season. I'll bookmark it here in the meantime, and I'll see if I can get that figured out here along the way. But just again, I mean, my goodness, it seemed like Denny Hamlin had this one just well in his back pocket to kind of work things out here. And again, I think that a lot of these teams, again, Martinsville is going to be really unpredictable. The spring race, again, I know it was a lot of follow the leader. It's been a real problem in the spring race these first couple of years with the car and with the tires and with everything in between. I know that became kind of a parade in the spring race in particular. And again, when you have Kyle Larson, even a few points below the cut line here, I would think that, he and Byron are definitely going to be ones that you're going to have to watch again. And Denny Hamlin came into last year's race about as confident as he could possibly be of winning that race, and it didn't turn out that way. And of course, it got immortalized in the Netflix documentary. Could this be the same situation this time around? It's hard to tell. Then you got Christopher Bell, again, good points day from both these races. Staying there in the mix. I mean, I was thinking that he wasn't going to be the one to point his way in, but it seems like that's probably going to be the scenario, depending on what happens next week. As they mentioned in the broadcast at the tail end here, it's still not a safe position to be in, but we'll find out if that's going to be the different situation there, too. Let's see here. Oh, hang on. We'll get this all squared away. But yeah, I mean, just incredible stuff. And again, the fact that Reddick was able to gain, what was it, about the 7/10 advantage on his lap time on that last lap there? I mean, just nuts. But I mean, again, Reddick, this is a win that's long overdue for Reddick to have in the Cup Series at Homestead. I mean, again, we talked about this a little bit on last week's show with his success winning that Xfinity Series race the same weekend that Morgan Shepherd's team got a lot of tires and was able to actually run the full race. So he was actually in the victory shot where Reddick was crossing the line and Landon Castle driving Shepherd's car was up there. Then there was the other time where Reddick had been up there. He was finished second in the race, I believe. I'm trying to remember who was the winner in that one. Was it Myatt Snyder, or it was like one of the guys there, like the Childress team, I believe. But he was driving an unsponsored Hour Motorsports car, got second in that race, was disqualified, unfortunately, for reasons beyond his control, things with the car. Had a lot of good runs out here. I know everybody always talks about Kyle Larson being, this is perfectly in his wheelhouse. Certainly he dominated this race in years past. And yes, he was absolutely a factor the entire day, really, even after spinning out at the end and trying to kind of claw his way up again. Still got about a 13th place finish out of that. Given how low the attrition was, again, I think he did a solid job out there. But Reddick never seems to really get mentioned in the same breath, despite, again, being another driver that has been that good at actually ripping the boards and running that high lane and getting a good finish out here. And to be able to do it in the Cup Series here and especially under these circumstances here where it gets you into the championship 4, gets 23-11 into the championship 4. That is absolutely massive for them, and a tremendous effort there too. Congratulations to Harris Liu as well. I know he was a big part of the marketing push this weekend with the special paint scheme they're running this weekend. He did another one of his absolutely fantastic shirt designs that was revealed here this past week. I mean, what more can you say? I think that I was really impressed with how well the field just kind of, I know that these cars are, they're very close together, and that's been a big problem. And you see that issue with there being too much parity. And Denny Hamlin speaks out a lot about this on his podcast, and that, that's why you've seen a lot of trouble at, especially the short tracks. I'd say to a lesser extent, the road courses. But here at a track like this, where you have so many different grooves that you can run, and, so many different paths you can kind of carve through the field here, and so many, daring and ridiculous moves, especially even in the turn 1 there. Again, it really shows that, these drivers are, able to really kind of compete, and not just like Atlanta, where everybody's locked in formation and can't go anywhere under a super speedway package, but actually able to kind of manipulate the car and really see how close they can run to the wall or how much they can stick to the inside line as well. We saw great competition in the Xfinity, to an extent, the Truck Series race, but certainly in the Xfinity Series race as well. That level of competition too. I mean, it's just it's good to see Homestead have a good race here. It's certainly been capable of it, and it's certainly had some in the past. Had some photo finishes before. It's also has had races where drivers like Larson have utterly dominated the event, and everybody else is just racing for second. But the people that were going for it in this one, again, right down to Elliott, who I had zero expectations for coming into this race. I figured Elliott, is more or less, not, going to be kind of a non-factor here these last couple of weekends, despite how consistent he's been to get to this point. But again, I just figured it was going to be too tight of a battle here with too many, drivers that are, won multiple races this year. They made a big mention of him having just the one win this year. But no, he was fantastic. Stage 2, he had that one pretty much locked in until, Hamlin's battle there towards the end. Looked good again in the final stage there. He, again, it's not to say that he couldn't figure things out at Martinsville either. Certainly Hendrick always seems to have that race in their back pocket, despite the fact that drivers like Denny Hamlin have had great runs there too. It could be really interesting. So we'll find out if that's going to be the case, and we're going to find out certainly in short order there. So Tyler Reddick, your winner. Margin of victory, 241 thousandths of a second to Blaney there in second. Hamlin, half second back there in third. Christopher Bell, again, another great run here. Absolutely deserving of being in the championship again, coming back from the disappointment of that last place finish with the brake failure at Phoenix last year. Chase Elliott in the 5th spot. Looking at the rest of the top 10, again, William Byron in the 6th spot there. Having a solid run here again down the stretch. We'll see if that's going to be enough, helping him down the run here. Bowman in the 7th. Allmendinger in 8th. Great job for him. Didn't really mention him today there, but seeing him kind of work his way up the rankings there in the last couple of pit sequences was a good run. Hocevar once again, and Ryan Preece 9th and 10th. And Josh Berry by extension as well in 11th. I know Berry spent some time in the top 10 in the opening stages of the race there too. Very impressive. And again, just seeing passing, just being able to see these cars actually pass each other. It really is, with the cars struggling as much as they've been with the tires and all the problems that they undoubtedly still do have. Let's not pretend that that's not going to be something that still needs to be worked on. But it really just shows how racy this track is, and not in a sense like a Richmond track where the drivers really like it, but it seems like not a lot is actually happening here. You could see it happen. You could see when Hocevar was working his way up there about, 75 laps into the race, that he was actually passing these cars and actually working his way around these championship contenders. And I get the trepidation that the booth had about that, thinking like, okay, well, look, you got a guy that's not in the playoffs and he's having a career run. I would say, easily the best run of his brief Cup career so far. Track he won in the Truck Series last year on the way to that championship battle last year. Again, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, if you're able to get up there and compete, then I say compete, and if the playoff drivers can't stay ahead of them, well, too bad, so sad. I mean, it's a competition. I think we always try to think of this sport sometimes in terms of entitlements, and then if you're a championship caliber driver that, suddenly there's this protective shield around you and, nothing else is supposed to touch you. And then if anything happens, then it's just an international incident. And yes, it would have big championship implications. Yes, certainly under this format. But if you get caught by some guy that's, in 20th in points and just having a career day, well, that just happens. That's part of the excitement of it, because at the end of the day, it's about trying to win these races. And again, that's why I think a full season championship format, despite the outcome today, is still preferable. Because again, you could have a guy that's that much further back in points, and they could still, go get him out there. The first race that ran here in 2003 was right after Matt Kenseth clinched that championship in Rockingham, and it was still a fantastic race. Had a memorable finish. Bobby Labonte's last win, Bill Elliott with the flat tire at the end. This one, even better of a finish, I would say, certainly with the level of competition we had among these drivers up there too. So yeah, just a tremendous turnaround, and great to see some good runs back here. I think back to when Larry Foyt drove that Evernham car in 2003 after just a disastrous season that he had for the A.J. Foyt team, and him having a good run out there. This track still opens the possibility of somebody maybe capitalizing on that and having a good run. If you stay on the lead lap, if you stay on the same sequence as the leaders and kind of work your way up there, you might be able to make the right moves or capitalize on somebody else's that doesn't work out and find your way up there. So again, a tremendous effort by these drivers throughout the field here in today's race. So yeah, I mean, again, I would say if there was anything negative to bring up about this one, the last place battle, it wasn't very exciting, but that's ultimately a peripheral thing there anyway. I found myself for most of this race just kind of had it on the background, just listening to see if anything else was happening with Chad Fincham's car. Indeed, for a lot of this event, Fincham was losing laps and was running at the back of the field there for Motorsports Business Management. Had a loose, it was too loose at one point, then it was too tight. They were losing laps. They wanted to stretch the tires for about the first 60 laps. But as we saw in this race, everybody seemed to be pitting about every 40 laps or so. And that was the same at the back of the field there, too. Fincham ultimately did not get in the last place spot here because J.J. Yaley bounced off the wall late in the race. The car still wasn't handling well when they went out there to try to feel things out, and he pulled behind the wall. I believe that should list it as the DVP for this one here, since it wasn't just the initial contact that took him out, but he hadn't cleared minimum speed there and then pulled behind the wall there at that point. We'll see if that shows in the official results, and of course, that'll be part of the article, pending, of course, the results of post-race inspection, which, of course, are going to have the same implications as everything else here tonight. But Yaley will have his second last place run at Homestead, pending that same inspection, and it'll be his second last place run of the year. And second is at Homestead, his first since 2020 when he drove for Rick Ware Racing, but his second this year driving for the New York racing team there, and Jonathan Cohen in that program there. And it looks like they were the only DNF because Fincham still finished the race under power, 9 laps down. Ty Gibbs had some problems towards the end, as was reported in the broadcast. He lost fourth gear on one of the late race restarts, dropped back in the pack, ultimately came down pit road for repairs. Didn't quite work out there, but he ends up 6 laps down at the finish of this race. Corey LaJoie and Justin Haley, in fact, look at the results here. The other interesting thing, I guess, despite the number of cautions at the end, only a couple of drivers 1 lap down here. Haley ended up in the lucky dog spot after 2 spins, one of them under very dramatic circumstances. He had a great qualifying run, started in the top 10, was running in the 6th spot when he and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. came together in turn 3, spun the car down to the apron. Luckily, nobody else was involved, despite both Chase Elliott in particular and William Byron. And then in terms of the non-playoff drivers, Kaz Gralla came very, very close to running into Haley there on the apron. We could have ended up having one of the earliest retirements in Homestead history here, at least on the Cup Series side. That did not turn out to be the case there, and Haley ends up in the 34th spot after another spin later on. So again, probably the only real problem for the Spire team. Zane Smith, seeing him drop back to the 30th spot. I know that he was up there with Hocevar during his rally midway through the race, and he got some mention. I noticed he was pitting, I believe, with Denny Hamlin at the end. I know I saw the Ambetter car there towards the end of the race, and that must have been him there in that situation. Seeing him in the results, a little bit surprised to see him back in 30th, especially with the car behind him. Kyle Busch had 2 pit penalties in this race that dropped him well down the standings. And again, I think it's so tricky now at this point here when you get down to the end and the caliber of the drivers that are still in the championship hunt. It's so much more difficult for non-playoff drivers to win these races. Not impossible, but Kyle Busch, and trying to get that 20th straight season with a win, it's going to be so difficult these last couple of rounds. Martinsville traditionally had been one of his worst tracks earlier in his career. He improved there steadily at Joe Gibbs, but then there was kind of an ebb afterwards there. I remember distinctly that Halloween race where he just dropped to last place on pace, and just inexplicably, like there was no account over the radio, nothing from the team. They didn't seem to make any other adjustments or anything. They were just slow, and just dropped him to the back of the field there. We'll see if things turn around there too. Again, Childress certainly has their history at Martinsville. I wouldn't say anything is impossible, especially if you just hit on the right setup. And again, we ran the option tires at Richmond, where, yes, we had Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch to a lesser extent running much better than they had before. Obviously, there's since now been some controversy over that and what the nature of, what information was transferred from one team to another. That story is still, it's interesting to figure out, and it makes you wonder what was going on there, if anything. But if we get any other information on that, that'll be something to certainly go into. But I'll be interested to see if there's any residue from that next week at Martinsville, if it was just a matter of the option tires and figuring it out better, or if it was because of something else that was going on behind the scenes and, getting information from this team or another, or if they were even the recipients of it. Who knows? But that's one of many things that are going on in the sport right now. Joey Logano, the Las Vegas winner, not really a factor in this one, finished back in the 28th spot. By far the worst of the playoff drivers. Larson again with his spin. My goodness. I mean, it was tremendous. It was good also, I think, in this race here to see. And on the same subject, again, there's been a lot of problems with this car. We've talked about the issues where a driver spins out or a driver, beaches themselves on the under tray and, and everything else that happens there. And just how, I think in Denny's show where they talked about how, like, even a screw that gets picked up underneath the car, how it can, like, nick that part, that it could completely mess up the handling of your car for the day. And Larson, in this case here, certainly had more than his share of bad luck in this race here. Flat tire, right rear, battling for the lead. Luckily, he was pretty high and close to the wall, so he just kind of glanced off the barrier there, and it drew a caution, so he didn't lose multiple laps there. Gets back up there again, battling for Ryan Blaney for the lead and trying to, get a good spot, or at least a spot in the top 5, having a good run out there, ends up spinning himself off the corner there, and still coming back to finish 13th in this race here. I think, compared to perhaps, I guess, what happened with Haley there being at the back of the field all day after his spin, I don't know if Hendrick has just figured out something with the under tray, or if they just had better luck and didn't damage it as much as somebody else did in that case. Whatever the case may be, but I'm glad there's some resiliency under the car there. I'm going to kind of take that from this. I'm sure Hendrick has access to materials that Spire doesn't, with them, despite them both being Chevrolet programs and so forth. Because that's one of the things that makes these races really exciting too, is when somebody's able to really come back from a misfortune, not just a bad pit stop or something like that, but actually, spinning out on the track. It's been such a rarity these days because, Denny Hamlin in Michigan and some of these other races earlier this year, somebody has that kind of problem. They're just not going to be a factor at all. So that could definitely be another one to look at. But Larson, again, 13th on this and ends up just below the cut line. Let's get those cut line stats here too and kind of look at that at the same time. I'm sure NBC's Twitter page has that already pulled up here. Let's see. I know that Larson was just a couple points below when they showed that at the end of this, but I want to get that correct. Okay, yes. So here's the situation. So let me try the second screen again. I want to see if I can get that to work. I don't know why that's not working tonight. It's really not doing it. I know it's plugged in. Come on. Okay, well, we're not going to worry about that. All right. Let's see. Okay, so playoff standings here. Tyler Reddick and Joey Logano win and advance, of course. Christopher Bell, after his strong run at Las Vegas and a solid run today, 29 points to the good. Now, they mentioned that, that's not obviously guaranteed to advance. How things figure out with the playoff points, with the stage points in Martinsville, that could change things. And Bell is, of course, a past winner at Martinsville. He won the Hale Mellon race that was completely overshadowed in that event. So we'll see if that's, another possibility again. He's certainly had a great round of 8, been a factor in both these races. I don't expect that to really change next week. Then you go down to William Byron, 4th in points, 7 points to the good. Here's a driver that won the spring race, has not won a Cup Series race since then. Has been very consistent this year, though. Very deserving of, again, being on the next round. Was solid in this race, too. But again, not as spectacular as the top 3 were. Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin and Reddick, and even Chase Elliott in that respect. Elliott finds himself 43 points out, had a good chance to maybe punch his ticket today, was very solid in this race. If things stayed the same from stage 2, it probably would have worked out that way. Unfortunately, he's going to be in a tough spot next week. Blaney won this race, the fall Martinsville race last year. 38 points out, has to win pretty much. I mean, depending on where the stage points fall. But yeah, it's going to be a tough situation for them. Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, can they point their way in? Debatably, Hamlin 18 points out, Larson 7 out. I fully expect Larson to be loaded for Bear next week. Despite the fact that you have Byron in there, and I'm sure they would love to have the Daytona 500 winner in the playoffs. If I had to choose right now between Larson and Byron, I would still go with Larson. Even though that Martinsville requires that level of finesse, and even with Byron winning the 40th anniversary race, which was such a prestigious event for Hendrick, I mean, it was really a coronation for that program there that week. I think that's going to be really difficult there at that point. And then it's going to be a matter too of what Denny Hamlin has left in the tank. Is he going to be able to capitalize on the option tires and kind of get up there too? I don't know. But man, I don't see breaking the Hendrick stranglehold on this one with 2 of their cars right there. I'm sure they would love to get at least 2 of their, obviously there's only 2 spots left. Which 2 they would get in there, whether if Chase pulls off the win and Larson just has a good points day over Byron or whatever the situation is. That's a lot of horsepower to go up against here. We don't have all 4 of them in there because what happened with Byron or what happened with Bowman after the Roval there. But I fully expect them to be just as dominant next week. I don't see any of that changing even after today. Which I'm sure is another reason that Reddick and Blaney were fighting so hard for the lead in this one too. Now, again, Blaney, won the race last year, but at that point he was on a real upward swing, winning Talladega and down the stretch run there, having a very good sequence of races, was right there with Kyle Larson in the Homestead race. But again, had a good showing in this race too. He could be peaking at the right time. It's a toss-up, as to how competitive it's going to be. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be near the same kind of racing we had today, even if the option tires have, Darlington-type results where you have faster cars and slower cars. There's just no room out there, and it's going to still be the way it always is, where it's about managing your brakes, it's about managing your fenders, it's about not using your car up too early in the race. It could be another situation where it's more likely a mechanical situation that could take somebody out, or a bad pit stop. It could be just as simple as that. You could have everything right in the right spot. Again, even with Chase Elliott being last ranked there, I wouldn't really eliminate anybody on this one here as being a potential person that can get up there. I think that of the 6 drivers that are not currently locked in, any one of them could have a great day. I mean, there's nobody in this that I would say is particularly bad at Martinsville. I think Bell is helped out by having that 29 points to the good. He's probably, you could argue the weakest of the group, but that's a tough argument to make given how strong he's been in this round. And again, him being a past winner not even that long ago with this current car. Yeah, we'll see. I think the one person that had the most pressure on them at the end of this race was Reddick. Because if Reddick was still not in there, I think that would have been a very tough situation. We haven't seen that much out of 2311 at the short tracks, especially at Martinsville. I think that would have been really, really difficult, especially going up against Denny Hamlin and the drivers at Hendrick. And I'm sure that's what got you those extra 6/10 there at the end of that race there to actually pull off this win. Wanting it is never enough. You got to actually have the best car out there and the best strategy. And obviously things kind of fell that direction here. But that's the other way to certainly look at that too. Yes, Willie B, you're right too. Yeah, qualifying is going to be tremendous on that too. And Sean, yes, oh goodness, yeah, doubly significant with it being the 20th anniversary of the Hendrick plane crash. Yes, Sean, absolutely. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, that's huge. So it could well be another Hendrick Invitational next week. Now I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Because again, we have three of them in here, and they could just be just racing each other as hard as possible to get to the championship four. And if any of them get in there, you got Larson as a past champion, you got Chase Elliott as a past champion, you got Byron, who was very good in the Phoenix race last year. Yeah, and again, the spring winner at Martinsville, it's going to be a tough stranglehold to break. And yeah, if it starts off in qualifying, that's going to be in the situation here. So, yeah, we'll find out. But I do think it'll be interesting. But it's just like, it just makes you think though about the way that they raced out there today. And again, it would be nice to be able to take that and just say, okay, a championship race will play out that way. Not always. I mean, we haven't seen that really with the next gen car. We haven't had the chance to really see that. We've just seen it. This is about the closest we see to it here, being in the round of 8. But back when the earlier generations of cars, Gen 6 and so forth, it could have a long green flag run to the end, and the field may be strung out. And actually, when it kind of had a late race restart, like Carl Edwards' situation years ago there, it turned out to be just a huge mess. And then it was, a real problem there at the same time. But again, it'll be interesting. It would be great to see this as a championship venue. I would love to visit this track one of these days. I agree with Lee Diffie that to have that underlined on kind of your to-do list. But one of these days we'll check it out. But that may be with the championship weekend one of these days. We're not going to be a championship weekend for Phoenix this year, already preparing for it for next year, but I think it's going to be something pretty exciting on the show. And the advantage to that, though, is, of course, after the Phoenix race, we'll have a show here right after that. We haven't done that in a few years here. I think really since the last championship weekend at Homestead. We've been in Phoenix here the last few weeks there. So we'll have a show that night, and that'll be a lot of fun, too. We'll see what all the storylines are going in here at the same time. Looking at the rest of the field, kind of other stories through here. Bubba Wallace looked really good at the start of the race. Seemed to have a car just as good as Tyler Reddick's was. Had a good battle at the front of the field there, too. Martin Truex, I loved seeing the retro championship paint scheme they did for him. The Furniture Row scheme, unfortunately, not really a factor in this race after the early laps. Ends up back in the 23rd spot there. So, again, a difficult situation for him. His last win may well be that New Hampshire victory from last year. So we'll see if that's going to be the story there or not. Again, we talked about Kyle Busch. Ross Chastain, I didn't really even notice him the entirety of this race here today, but it's showing him the last car on the lead lap in the 33rd spot, 19 seconds back at the lead battle there. Not exactly sure what the problem was there, too. Saw a little bit of Suarez in this race, but, kind of a different story there for the Trackhouse effort here. Suarez in the 16th spot there, further up. Had that little altercation on pit road. Chris Buescher spun out. At one point, dropped him to the tail end of the lead lap. He comes back to finish 15th. So a solid run for him. Honestly. Yeah, just a great race. Really enjoyed it. It's going to be something interesting to find out. I'm thinking it's probably going to be a lot of green flag racing. Andrew, I'm seeing your question about that too. What Martinsville race are we going to see next week? Is it going to be a wreck fest or a boring one or longer green flag runs? I think it's probably going to be clean and green. We saw today. There were a few altercations in this one, a few incidents along the way. I think Martinsville will probably be closer to that. I don't predict it's going to be, it's going to be a very physical race for sure. And the strategy is going to be very aggressive, but, I think at this point here, it just becomes a staring contest, and who's going to blink first, and it's going to be close, but we'll see. It depends on if Chase Elliott upsets the standings or if he does not, but that'll be something to watch one way or the other. Let's see here. Yeah, goodness. Oh, I kind of used I'll admit, I had to use the first part of this show to just kind of cool back down again, because that was just exhilarating. I'm going to watch that plenty of times, and I'm still trying to get the other screen to work here, but we'll figure that out here in the meantime. But regardless, we'll get into the Xfinity and the Truck Series action here as well. I'll tell you a little bit more about the next videos I'm working on here for the channel. We'll do some trivia and so forth. So if you'd like to stick around there, we'll jump into that. If you have any other questions, definitely drop it in the chat here. I always glance over here to see what happens, but we'll find out what the story is on here as well. Norris, thank you for your comment here as well. I appreciate you enjoying the streams and the videos, we got much more. Let me go and jump into that too, because actually this is pretty relevant for next week's race here as well. I got a lot more work done this week on the next 500 Days episode, which is going to be on the Spring Texas race from 2001. So that was a very enjoyable one there. I've just been editing race clips into that, and I need to backlog the graphics and so forth. My goal was to get it out this month. It's going to be a little bit on the edge of that there. Maybe you'll be in the Patreon at the end of this month before the start of that. So if you're interested in more details on that, patreon.com/Lastcar on Brock. I want to post a graphic in there to kind of give you an idea of where we are on the progress with that. The reason I mentioned that as well is I already have the script done. I just finished editing the script for the next episode after that, which actually is Martinsville. It'll be the Spring Martinsville race, the Virginia 500 in 2001. That was a very enjoyable race there, and I think it's going to make a really good episode. So I was kind of anguishing that one a little bit because there's a lot of little details on that. And for those of you following the series from home there, the episode after that actually covers not only the inaugural Busch Series race or the current Xfinity Series, of course, the Xfinity race at the Nashville Super Speedway, but then the week after that is going to be the Spring Talladega race, and I want to lump both of those into one larger episode. It may get broken into two depending on how long the episode is. My original plan is to make it one episode, but we'll see how that goes. So I'm kind of working my way along with that. On a parallel track, the Rise of the Field Fillers is coming along as well. I've been getting a lot of questions about that. That series is still going. It's not over. In fact, I have multiple episodes I need to get, I've been compiling research on. I want to set that up so I could get through as many of those scripts over this upcoming off season as possible. Each year, I always seem to have some kind of big project from one year to the next. 2 years ago was finishing the Derek Cope book. Last year, it was revitalizing the Lastcar.info page over on Squarespace. This year, it's probably going to be more video scripts here this time around, which is cool because that'll be great. If I can get those written and start recording them and at least have an inventory of stuff that I could edit through the first part of the year, hopefully that'll create a situation where we can get some more content here in short order. But it always takes time. I enjoy working on these. I don't enjoy making you guys wait for them here. But I think that the result will be really good. And in fact, the next another script that I did have that I also finished editing this week is the next Rise of the Field Fillers on Competitive Edge Motorsports, which is the first team that brought Marathon Oil into NASCAR as a sponsor. And there's some interesting stories that came up with that as well. That ended up being a much longer script. That one may actually end up being in two parts, depending on how that script comes up, because that ended up being quite the rabbit hole there in terms of what information was available. I couldn't find anything for a while. And then thank goodness the Internet Archive got back online and everything and all that, because I found some tremendous stuff on that. And I think it's going to make that a very interesting episode there too. So, yeah, and I think that'll be good. In the meantime, yeah, we got, over these last couple of months, I've been able to kind of get videos set up for the Lastcar archives, as well as the third channel or the other channel there. Big thanks to everyone that shared the SS United States video I mentioned last week. That actually got a lot of really good traffic this week, even though that channel only has, I think, 4 videos on it right now. Yeah, it actually got about 6,000 views on it, which I was very surprised by. So if for any of you that were sharing that video or checking it out, big thanks to you guys for checking it out. Hopefully check out the videos in the description as well. If you're ever interested in ocean liner content or that kind of historical content there's a lot of great sources, big old boats, ocean liner designs, and then, of course, the Floating Palaces documentary, which is linked in the description as well. You can find that on my third channel, not on this channel, but on the third channel there as well. Brock's Other Videos is the name of that channel there too. So yeah, I think it's a good start. So I think it's going to be really exciting to be able to kind of get a lot of this here too. Andrew Bremner, I see your excitement there about the Martinsville Xfinity race. We'll definitely jump into Xfinity next here and talk about what was set up there too. It seemed like this was going to be the race of the weekend because the Xfinity Series package is always so competitive. It fit to the Homestead track even better. I think, just like the race today, even though we had tight battles among the lead pack here, it seemed like the whole field was really competitive in the Homestead race on Saturday. Austin Hill, tremendous effort for him. Not a style of track that you would typically expect him to excel on. But again, I think he did a fantastic job out there. He deserved to punch his ticket. He's not going to have to sweat Martinsville like he did last year with his battle with Sheldon Creed in the final laps of the race there. He's been so close so many times. I think it was either Weaver or Gluck was mentioning this, that Hill has come so close to getting the championship for, not just in the Xfinity series, but even back to his truck series career as well. It's a tremendous turnaround for him. Custer always seems to be so dominant at this track. He was, in this point, too, led 67 laps, although Hill led 82. But Custer was very strong in this event. But still, Hill was able to capitalize and get a good run there at the finish. Eric Almirola in third, Jesse Love in fourth, and Sheldon Creed in the top five. A little bit of a glitch during the broadcast at the end, where when the checkered flag dropped, it said red flag, and it gave the win to Jesse Love for some reason. That was weird. Don't exactly know what to expect with that, but kind of a bizarre situation there, too, at the same time. But Austin Hill, your leader, your winner, rather, on that one in dramatic fashion there, too. Ryan Sieg with yet another tremendous run with what was the same car that he ran so well in Las Vegas last week, as well as the race, the car that nearly won at Texas back in the spring. He had a fantastic run in this race, too. Beautiful paint schemes that Ryan Daly did there, the kind of the pink and white schemes that both he and Matt DiBenedetto had in this race. Unfortunately, Matt's day did not turn out so well with an early engine problem after climbing from last on the grid to the top 20. Didn't quite work out for him, but again, a solid performance there up to that point. But Sieg ends up in the 7th spot there, ahead of Justin Allgaier, Sam Mayer, and AJ Allmendinger. And Spencer, I see your comment as well. Thank you for the super chat. We'll jump into that in just a moment, because we could have something very interesting for the championship for the Xfinity side, and I'll get into that here in just a moment. I will get into more of the last place battle here again. Early in the race there, it looked like he was going to a number of these other drivers at the back of the field here. But Matt DiBenedetto ends up taking the spot from Nick Lights. Nick Lights ended up having a right front tire go down, shredding the fender off, dropped him back in the order. Suspension problems took him out of the race. Armani Williams was your last place runner for most of the opening stages of this event. But him driving for the Joey Gase efforts in conjunction with Carl Long's team. Carl Long, of course, fielding the Cup car earlier today for Chad Fincham. Also working with the Gase effort here for Armani Williams. If you remember back at Loudon earlier this year, he worked with JD Motorsports to get Armani in the field there as well. But Armani ends up climbing to the 35th spot past all three of the drivers that dropped out of the race there. Him returning to a track where he ran in the Truck Series for G2G last year. But Matt ends up your last place finisher there, gets his second last place run. And as you mentioned, Spencer, there, yes, as well, a 7-way tie for the most last place finishes in the Xfinity Series for 2024. Again, thank you so much for the super chat there for $5. And we will get into that right now. Let's jump into that. We'll get the Xfinity results and pulling up the championship battle. And here is where things could get very interesting. With the playoff standings being what they are in the Xfinity Series, we do have a pretty tight battle there as well for the last couple of spots. We have Austin Hill in on a win with AJ Allmendinger, your Las Vegas winner. Justin Allgaier, 35 points to the good, and Cole Custer, 28 points to the good there. After both had solid runs at Homestead. Custer is certainly better than Allgaier's this time around. Chandler Smith, 28 points below the cut line. Had a very pessimistic interview afterwards there about his potential maybe not having a ride next year. Who knows what is going to be the situation there. Yes, he's kind of jumped from team to team between his runs at Colleague last year and Joe Gibbs Racing this year. Is he going to go back to the Truck Series? Is there any other options out there? That'll be something to find out there. But he's certainly a driver that's capable of at least getting to this point, and seems deserving of another shot at that at the same time. So we'll see what the situation is there. Jesse Love, 35 points out. Sam Mayer, 47 out, and Sammy Smith, 95 out. Now, I want to underline Sam Mayer's name there for sure by being 47 points out of the bubble line there. What you have to look at, if you look at the Xfinity Series standings, Sam Mayer actually is the leader of the Lastcar Xfinity Series Championship with 2 last place finishes, 8 bottom 5s, and 9 bottom 10s. I'm going to double check our stats before we get closer to the championship here pretty soon, just to make sure everything is close, because it is so close it definitely needs a recount for sure. Because right now at the moment, he is leading Dawson Cram by just one bottom 5 finish. Cram has 11 bottom 10s to Mayer's 9, so it could very easily change this weekend in Martinsville. We saw a Martinsville change in the standings last year when Kyle Sieg was marching his way up the standings and got the last 2 last place runs of the year, taking the title from Parker Kligerman. We could see a situation here where potentially a driver could win both the Xfinity Series actual championship and the Lastcar championship. Something that, and I'm pretty sure I can be confident in saying this, something that has never happened in any of the top 3 series. We've had drivers that have gone on to win championships, but not in the same season. And I guess you could say it's another consequence of the current playoff system and how consistency just means nothing now. But that's where we are. Sam Mayer could conceivably, if I'm almost pulling for him to actually win the Martinsville race next week and getting into the championship 4. And I believe he's a past winner at Martinsville, isn't he? In the Xfinity Series? I'm trying to remember. I know he had good runs in the Truck Series when he started out. But I believe that's the case. But even if it isn't, JR Motorsports is certainly good here. Won here last year with Justin Allgaier, of course. That would be really interesting because, again, as Spencer pointed out, we do have a lead with 7 drivers that have 2 last place finishes each. Kind of a little bit of a different situation from last year. We just had a couple of drivers with 2 last place runs. Now we have several of them, and any one of them could jump to the lead by just getting one more last place run at the end here. Some of these are part-time drivers. Akinori Ogata is the 7th seed here. Not sure if he's going to be running any of these last 2 races this season, but we've seen him at Phoenix before. And actually, we've seen him at Martinsville. I think he was last in the spring Martinsville race this year. So again, that could turn things on their ear. Patrick Emmerling and Kyle Weatherman have both shared their rides with other teams there in the standings. Matt DiBenedetto coming over to the RSS team, the Viking Motorsports effort this year, getting his second last place run, his first since his disqualification at New Hampshire. So he gets up there. He's only 2 bottom 5s behind Dawson Cram. And Cram has been running between both the Mario Gosselin team and Mike Harmon's team. It seems like whenever somebody else gets into one ride, he gets into the other. That's kind of been the effort lately. I hate that he's been struggling still with the Gosselin team because that's a very solid program out there. Of course, it seems like that program's just kind of been having difficulty with all their drivers. It's not anything unique to him. But seeing him kind of climb the ranks here like other drivers have, the Gosselin team is one that, again, they have fun with their paint schemes. They had some gorgeous ones this weekend for the Halloween season, but that'll be another thing to look at too. But again, finds himself right there in the standings. I know that Dean Thompson gave Cram a certificate last year. We are going to be doing the certificates again this year. I think this year we're probably just going to do the ones for the actual people that win the championship since it won't be in Phoenix, but we'll see if that's going to be the story along the way. But if you're looking for real chaos at the end of the year, especially at Phoenix, look no further than that number 1 car because he could very well make some very unique history here. And you better believe we're going to be talking about it if that's going to be the case there too. So look ahead to that. But right now, Sam Mayer, 47 points out, must-win situation for him for sure. Similar situation to Chase Elliott there on the Cup Series side. But we'll find out if that's going to be the story there too. So we'll see what that situation is. Again, solid race. Don't really have much notes on that. Chandler Smith was good at the beginning, ended up falling back to 13th. And Connor Zilich maintaining, I think his 12th place finish was the worst he's had this year in the Xfinity Series. So a good run for him. William Sawalich was able to make his Xfinity Series debut. Where did he get? Because I know he had a late race pit stop. That's right. He ended up back in 24th there after he got in the wall there. But again, making the jump there, and we'll see what they can do over there. Certainly driving over for Joe Gibbs Racing is going to help for sure. But I know that they've been developing him for some time in the ARCA series and so forth, and having those few Truck Series starts as well. We'll see how that shakes out. It's gonna be really interesting to see in the races coming up here as well. Let's see. What was the other one I wanted to look at here? Austin Green a bit further back. He was driving for Bobby Daughter. It looked like he was basically the same Chevy from the Peterson team I don't know if they brought out the same hauler this weekend here. Kudos to everybody that was doing some great garage area coverage this weekend. I couldn't really tell if that was the case, but that probably was. But again, a bit further back in the oval track finisher, despite his success at the road courses, but we'll see how things shake out there. Brad Perez, congratulations to him on making his first Xfinity start at Homestead. He's run the Truck Series racer before. His family was out there. I know they've always been tremendously supportive of him. Had another beautiful paint scheme out there, the Space Beans car. He ends up in the 28th spot, kind of climbed his way up from the back of the field there. So kudos to him as well. Let's see. Jeremy Clements with a solid finish there in the 16th and just outside the top 10. Mentioned Zilich. Weatherman in 14th. Again, great Halloween paint schemes out there. I thought that was a lot of fun. I know we usually see him in Martinsville, but with Halloween this Thursday, it's a little bit different this week. Yeah, and again, it's a solid performance there across the board. Moving on to the Truck Series race, which is on the same day, made for a pretty busy Saturday for sure. Congratulations to Grant Enfinger for coming back from a series of misfortunes there in the early and middle stages of the event and taking Bobby Gill, the late, great Bobby Gill's name, back to victory lane for a second straight race. He could very well be on the Joey Logano strategy, only in the round of 8 this time. Possibly storming his way to all 3 of these wins and coming into Phoenix as the championship favorite, which would be pretty tremendous given the fact that Corey Heim and Christian Eckes have been really the name of the game all this year in the Truck Series. But Grant put together a fantastic race out there. CR7 Motorsports now has 2 wins. That's fantastic for them. It's going to be a great momentum carrying deal there for them going into next year. Ty Majeski in the 2nd spot, Connor Mosack in 3rd, Corey Heim in 4th, and Tyler Ankrum in the 5th position there. Looking further back, Stuart Friesen, Daniel Dye, Raja Karuth, Christian Eckes, and Taylor Gray rounding out your top 10 there at the same time. So yeah, we'll definitely go talk about the Truck Series, and this admittedly is where we do need to kind of shift gears a little bit in our discussion, because unfortunately things weren't all positive this weekend, and the Truck Series race is certainly one example of it. You could look at the one end there of Frankie Muniz for having a bit of frustration at the beginning of this race. It was, he sounded like he was just under a lot of stress at the beginning of this event, saying that he's always frustrated that mechanical issues happen, that feels like he doesn't have a chance to show that he belongs in the sport. Very early to kind of feel that way. It's only his 3rd career start. And they just had some mechanical issues, but congratulations to him for locking up the deal in 2025 with the Josh Realm effort. I think that's going to be huge for him, especially to kind of get a baseline for him. That's not the negative side of this at all, but I mentioned that because, of course, despite his misfortune, he didn't finish in last place. Your last place finisher was Matt Mills, and this was under extremely controversial circumstances. We've talked a bit about Connor Jones in the past here. Of course, he had his first last place run a couple of weeks ago. And in writing that, I found that pretty challenging because really from his ARCA career and into the Truck Series, he has found himself as basically the common denominator in the sport, always finding himself, not finding himself. We always seem to find him in these situations where he's being aggressive with other drivers out there, wrecking him for position, wrecking himself. There's been times where he's been called to the NASCAR hauler, as it sounded like what happened back at North Wilkesboro earlier this year. It's been a problem, and it's been a problem for a long time here. And we've heard this. You recall this from the Ernie Irvin video, that usually when you have a driver that's involved in a lot of accidents and their aggression is just a little bit too much, usually NASCAR steps in. They really do need to, because it could be a situation where, you have this undercurrent of, somebody that could potentially put somebody in a really dangerous situation. And some things have been done. I don't know to what extent, but whatever that's been, it just hasn't been enough. And unfortunately, in this race here, we saw an example of it. So about 75 laps into this race, Matt Mills is running mid-pack. Connor Jones comes up behind him in turns 3 and 4, gets on his rear bumper. It looks like just a tight race for position, but unfortunately, Jones really leans into the back of Mills. Mills' truck snaps loose on him, and he clobbers the outside wall. A brutal, brutal accident. And at a track where It's not a forgiving track at all. You can have safer barriers, you can have safer equipment in these trucks, but Mills' truck careened off the outside wall, ran into an infield tire barrier, and he needed a lot of assistance to get out of that truck. And now we've heard additional reports since then. Initially, they were going to keep Mills in the hospital for just the rest of the afternoon. Then that became overnight, and now we heard again today that it's going to be again through tonight. Not just the results of the effects of the actual impact, but the fire that then intruded in the car. He's being treated for smoke inhalation as well. That's again, a very serious accident. Luckily, again, we saw that Mills was conscious. We saw that, but that is a very serious situation that occurred there, and it deserved much more than just a 2-lap penalty for Jones as a result of that, especially after Jones was admitting to it on the radio and screaming at his crew. That could be really dangerous. This is not a video game. These drivers are not stuntmen, and even stuntmen work with certain safety restrictions as well to take into account things like that. He could have killed Matt Mills. It was very serious, just as serious as Kyle Busch's incident with Ron Hornaday, even with that happening under caution. It could be a very difficult situation there. And I'm particularly troubled by the fact that it's now a smoke inhalation deal here with Mills, because we've had a lot of issues with cockpit fires really in the Cup Series as well, that I think also needs to be taken more seriously. So definitely my prayers are with Matt Mills right now in his continuing recovery. Hopefully we hear more positive news. I appreciate the Nice Motorsports team for keeping everybody up to date on that. And that ended up being kind of the feature of the story yesterday. You just can't have that. You can't have drivers out there, playing that kind of bumper tag. Yes, it's going to be aggressive racing, but there's clearly a line. And this has been a year where I think we've had to discuss that. I mean, not just the Richmond race with Austin Dillon, but then, certainly a situation like this where it's just an egregious wreck. In some cases, I know people were drawing comparisons to the Daniel Hemrick Austin Dillon wreck that resulted in Dillon's last place run last week. I'm not as eager to draw that direct comparison. I think that was just a case of two drivers kind of competing for the same spot because it happened on corner entry. I think Dillon just kind of came down and Hemrick was just there at the same time trying to make a pass, and one zigged when the other zagged. I don't think you can say that in this particular case, especially with it being in the middle of the corner and with Jones just being so aggressive on the rear bumper of Mills and really just flicking them out of the way and really almost putting both of them in the wall. Jones was kind of chasing his truck up the track there at the same time. So that was a pretty shocking, honestly, and the results from it too. That needs to be treated very seriously. It shouldn't take somebody to be injured and hospitalized for it to get to this point. This should have really been handled better earlier on. I know it's easy to say that in hindsight here, but this is not something that came out of nowhere. When they showed it on the replay that the 66 was anywhere near him, it's like, oh God, not this again. That just shows it right there. So I don't know what NASCAR is going to do. I hope they do something. I think it probably should be considered whether he should run any other races this year and put somebody else in that truck. And at least use the offseason to perhaps, impose on him the importance of, racing intensely, but safely there at the same time, because he just can't have that. And I don't think that's just a racing deal either. People have been injured under accidental circumstances as well, but this was definitely not a case of that. So it's unfortunate that whole thing happened there at the same time. But yeah, and I'm not, and again, I know that he made the post on social media. That doesn't change my opinion on that either. No, it's not the kind of thing where it's like, oh shucks, let's move on. It's like, no, I'm not saying that's what he was saying in there, but I'm not willing to say that just because there was a statement of an apology there, that it's going to be something that, is entirely acceptable on that either. Because it's a life or death thing. It's a dangerous sport. And when you have somebody making dangerous moves out there, it becomes doubly so. And we got a taste of that this weekend. And thank goodness it wasn't anything more serious than it is. However, it is serious. It is absolutely serious. And, again, I'm hoping Mills recovers well there as well for both himself and his team and his sponsors. and so forth there. So we'll see what that story develops here this next week, and couple weeks here, and we'll find out what's going on there too. And I guess probably on this same note here, I want to also offer my condolences to the McDuffie family on their passing of Jeff McDuffie. We'll kind of bring that up here at the same time. Jeff McDuffie was the son of J.D. McDuffie. He competed in a few Cup Series races back in the 1980s, usually at local tracks near the Sanford area, North Carolina, such as Rockingham and North Wilkesboro. In fact, if you look at the racing reference listings, Jeff was actually entered in a Cup Series race at the North Wilkesboro track in 1988 when his father was recovering from his burns that he suffered at Daytona. And that was the last attempt that he made at a Cup Series race. He worked on the team as a mechanic for many years. And then this past week, getting the note from the McDuffie family on their Facebook page of Jeff's passing at the age of 65. So my condolences again to the McDuffie family for their loss this week. It did happen unexpectedly from this report here. I talked with Charlie Birch and others there as well this past week. Yeah, they're going to be doing the services. I was just retweeting about that on the social media earlier today. The services are going to be held at the Bridges Cameron Funeral Home and the Buffalo Cemetery in Sanford, which is the same locations that were used during JD's funeral arrangements back in 1991. So again, definitely wanted to certainly mention that here at the same time. As it happened, it was kind of interesting this week here. I actually got a message from the Demers family here as well. It's kind of interesting this with I mean, the timing, I suppose you could say, with Jeff's passing. JD actually kind of came up more in discussions earlier this week in the McDuffie family. Leslie Demers revealed that she had the fuel can and the pit board that was used from JD's last race in 1991. And it's my understanding that those are being transferred back to the McDuffie family as well. There were some pictures that were shared of that. If my second screen was working, I'd be able to show you that on here, but I don't think it's doing that. Why is it not doing that? Is it the second, is that one not working? I don't know why it's not doing it, but there is an interesting picture that has been posted. If you check out their Facebook page on that, it can definitely get shown. We can probably do it the old-fashioned way with the phone here, but we'll see what that was brought up there. Where is it? Let's see. Nope, it wasn't in that one. Yeah, here we go. It's not the best picture, but we'll try to work that out there. There you go. So, yeah, these were pictures from the Demers family there on that. And that is the fuel canister that was on pit road at Watkins Glen. And that is the original blue pit sign. It says JD Pontiac above the car number there as well. And there were pictures. Charlie Birch, I believe, had provided the pictures that confirmed those as well that were used earlier. And again, the story, the story of JD's legacy is never finished, but it's unfortunate. Jeff was not one of the people that I interviewed for the book. I had made several attempts to reach out to him during that. We just never really kind of made a connection on that. He wasn't the only person that we missed on that one. There were some others as well. But he was one of the big ones that was trying to reach on that too. He is mentioned in the book there for sure, and certainly his past working with the team there too. But again, condolences to he and his family there as well. This was a week about NASCAR history in general, and to kind of bring up here on the same note, the story here again with what I'm wearing here today with the Bobby Allison shirt here. Bobby Allison finally credited with his 85th win, his win at Bowman Gray Stadium in 1971. Interesting timing, of course, with the return of Bowman Gray to the NASCAR schedule for the Clash. Just an amazing story that came out. Excuse me for just a moment. There we go. Needed more of that Winston Cup water. Yeah, again, a tremendous story here this week. And, we've seen this lately, I guess, from a couple other examples here of NASCAR finally looking back at their history a little bit, not just paying lip service to it, but actually trying to kind of, fix some of these other issues here. We saw with the Wendell Scott family when they were awarded a trophy in honor of Wendell's win at Jacksonville years ago, when they did a presentation back at Daytona. But now we had this deal here with Bobby Allison finally getting credit for a win and an interesting video. And again, full credit to NASCAR Man for his video. I know I got some messages on that, but in terms of like doing actual content, and I know Rick Houston over the Scene Vault podcast was very passionate and outspoken on that, brought up a lot of discussion on it. And again, NASCAR Man History's video that I narrated for him on that, he did a great job condensing that story down and bringing up the race that nobody won was basically the story back then. And that it was and it was bizarre. It was bizarre that it was excluded from NASCAR statistics, with the whole Grand Am and full-size car rule and whatever the deal was with that. Especially since there were races that ran international cars at Bowman Gray Stadium, and those counted as Cup Series starts. In fact, when you look at the Lastcar standings, and you see towards the bottom of the manufacturers where you see like MGs and Morris Minors and stuff like that to show up there, those are almost entirely from those international races. It's not just the Linden Airport race that you always hear about with Al Keller winning the Jaguar, that won the race there because he had like half European cars and half American cars. Just how exciting that could be. I mean, that'd probably be a idea for a GP Laps video coming up at some point there. But those international races were always kind of interesting back then, and to bring in different manufacturers back then. But those were points-paying races, and whoever won those, they got credited with their wins. Tiny Lund, I believe, won a number of those. So thank goodness that Bobby was able to celebrate it. They presented him with a certificate. Mike Helton was there. I thought that was great, and it's perfect timing with this race coming up here next February at Bowman Gray Stadium. I think that's going to be great. I think it's going to be. I'm sure they're doing this in anticipation of doing something with that in that race. I don't know if they've saved his car from that event. That would be pretty cool. A lot of people talking about how this symbolizes the first win for Mustang in the NASCAR series. That's another thing you'll notice in the Lastcar stats. You'll see Chevrolet, and then you'll see lists for like the Camaro, or you'll see Ford, and then you'll see the T-Bird. It's like, well, that's because they ran multiple different models in some of those races. Later on, you would see different models run too, like the Buick LeSabre versus the I almost said the Grand National, but that would be a different era. The Buick Regal, but there would be other models, kind of used in there. But those distinctions weren't really used later in the sports history. But earlier, they certainly were, which is kind of another interesting distinction there in that. So you could technically see more wins for Chevrolet or Ford, depending on those. But that's another one. But again, all that aside, I mean, Bobby Allison has given so much to the sport. The three-time Daytona 500 champion, his career cut short, as an ageless driver, having that accident there with Giacomo Giacomo in 88, just an unfortunate incident there in that race. And then all the tragedy that the Allison family themselves have endured over the years. It's good to see, people recognizing his accomplishment there too. I know there were people that were saying, oh, how does Darrell Waltrip feel about it? It's like, look, Darrell's fine with it. I know they always try to see some rivalry there as well, and I'm sure obviously that existed back when they were drivers, but the two of them respect each other as competitors as well. And it wasn't a case of taking away some win for from another driver or anything. It was just a matter of getting that classification cleared up on that. So, I thought that was tremendous to see. I see mentions in the comments here too. Again, it could be what's going to be the next thing? Is there going to be another situation where, some other thing that happened in NASCAR's past is going to get corrected? Is it going to be Ricky Rudd getting his trophy back for winning Sears Point in 1991? Is it going to be Regan Smith getting the Talladega win? 611 Hornet has a suggestion here too about Mark Martin's 46 points from costing him the championship in 1990. Who could even say? That could be another thing to look at there too. Oh, Spencer, thank you for pointing that out. The 66 truck is scheduled to run Phoenix, but not Martinsville. Do you know if it's going to be Connor Jones, or is it going to be, that other guy from the Midwest? Luke Fenhouse. I'd be interested in that. Fenhouse, I know, is a really exciting talent. I know my staff writers have been very big on him for sure. But we'll see if that's going to be the story coming up there too. But yeah, again, congratulations, yeah, again on Bobby Allison, and I'm glad that they did that, and well, honestly, while he can still enjoy it, I feel that way very much with the Hall of Fame here too. And speaking of which, I'm very excited about the efforts with Ricky Rudd's induction into the Hall of Fame there. They produced some great shirts on that were advertised earlier this week. I love the one they did for Rudd's, where they put the Rudd Performance Motorsports logo on the side of the car. That was my big draw from this this week here with some of the historical aspects here. But we can't ignore the elephant in the room here either. The other big draw this week, of course, was the announcement of Dale Earnhardt Jr. bringing back the Budweiser sponsorship and the iconic number 8 in the late model series. I guess they're going to run at Florence this year and then some other races next year. And the massive marketing push and the tremendous merch that was produced by Ryan Williams. Just a great job on that. I mean, they did some great references. He was tweeting all this week about, referencing some of the famous Budweiser commercials, like the CD skipping one with the sound bars in the background there. A great throwback. And obviously a lot of Juniors fans back in that era where, the stands were just solid red at Talladega, especially after Senior's passing, and, Junior kind of took up that mantle and was so dominant at that track for so many years. You'd always be able to hear, who was taking the lead. And, you'd have that bright red car up front, and the car looks beautiful. Even on a late model here, it's just as nostalgic as the Sundrop 3 car has been these last couple of years. Yeah, I'm good on him on acquiring the trademark and getting that all locked in. And not just doing it for merch. I mean, if he wanted to do that, fine. He's totally, he's more than allowed to do that. But to actually have this be part of a racing effort as well, and being able to compete and being able to people to then not just wear the merch, but be able to wear the merch to the track and root for him in that car again, that's got to be so exciting. Junior wasn't so much my driver growing up, but I know for anybody who was, it's going to be just absolutely massive. And, yeah, they'll be able to settle the federal debt with, any of the sales on the merch here this week too. So that was really cool. Really neat story. I'm always obviously a big fan of anything that does that nostalgia and brings it into the modern era for people that are younger fans that maybe never even saw the Budweiser car race, which is something that's hard for me to imagine. But yeah, we're talking almost 20 years since that car ran in the Cup Series. We're reaching several years since Junior stepped away from the Cup Series, and he may well have run his last Busch race at Bristol this year. We don't know that, but that was basically the story at the time. It's really exciting. It's really exciting. So I'm so happy for his fans and for people that weren't able to be fans of him back then, or maybe were too young to wear, they couldn't wear alcohol merchandise at a school. Like I get that, because I remember I had my Harry Gant Skull Bandit sticker taken off my binder, in 7th grade, because he couldn't wear something with tobacco brands on it there. I'm sure it was the very same if you were a Junior fan and then, would just say Dale Jr. on the hood instead of Budweiser or something. I like that they have it just right in your face, unapologetic. And again, Ryan did a beautiful job there with the work. So kudos to him there for the effort on that. And yeah, definitely check that out if you're interested. I know plenty of people have. It has definitely been up there too. So kudos to them on that. Looking ahead to next week in Martinsville, another storyline we'll be following here is Norm Benning is going to be running the Truck Series race there in his older truck, which is a former KHI truck. This is the truck that he's run earlier this year in individual events there. We haven't seen as much out of him here these last couple of years, but he still has that truck in his inventory and has upgraded it to the current nose style and everything. So he's still able to run that. So he's expected to be among the contenders this week to qualify for the race. We'll see how that shakes out here. But win, lose, or draw, he is planning on running Daytona next year. There were some reports that Benning may be running his last Truck Series race at Talladega when he ran that white number 6 truck that was prepared over at the Joey Gase team and was originally a Charlie Henderson truck. But the report is, and talking with Benning just this week, that he is actually going to be running at Daytona next year. He is still looking for sponsorship, but unlike last year, he's not in a situation where the lack of sponsorship is keeping him from competing. It sounds like, from what he was telling me, that he is planning on competing at Daytona this year. He is still looking for sponsors. That search is always ongoing, but that should be something that he's very excited about there. For sure. And having, almost a top 20 run at Talladega, finishing on the lead lap, him getting another shot at it in his own equipment, being able to get his own setup there. And that was definitely an issue with the previous ride he had at Daytona. He was very excited about that and very happy about that too. So that'll be another cool story here coming up, not only between next week, but into the first part of next year as well. And I think that was more or less most of the notes that I had on that as well. Yeah, chewing tobacco ads. Yeah, exactly. Sean Doyle. Yep. Yeah, that's how far back it goes. I have that. Yeah, 1994 Harry Gant sticker. I think I've shown it up on here at one point or another, but I'll have to bring that up on here one of these days at the same time. Yeah, I mean, just a really interesting week. I mean, we've had, kind of a little bit of everything through here. But I feel a little exhausted on the show here tonight. I don't know if it shows, but it's been a lot. But I'm glad it's been more good than bad, which is great. Yeah. Well, how about we get into trivia here? And I'll catch up on Super Chats here at the same time. And we'll do some, if you have any other questions or anything else I didn't cover. Again, I know it's been a stacked week here. I think it's most of the notes I have on my phone here. But anything else that comes up, definitely let me know, and we'll get into that here at the same time. Well, you couldn't wear a Viagra jacket to school. I would think that would be, I don't know. See, there you go. I mean, I see all these movies. We're watching movies from like the 90s, and you see these things at like high schools where people are wearing hats. I remember you couldn't wear a hat. Like, I mean, even when I had hair, I liked wearing a hat back then, and then it's like, I don't know what parallel universe these movies are taking place in, but yeah, that was always kind of the deal. Alrighty. So we'll do some questions on the trivia deal here at the same time. So once again, those are NASCAR pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Once again, NASCAR pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Those are your categories. I'll tell you what, people got their money's worth at Homestead this weekend. I mean, that's, we're definitely going to have to check that out one of these days. I hear only positive things about the track accommodations and how accessible it is. And it looks very, obviously it is very modern, and how many times it's been revamped and rebuilt and so forth. But one of these days, I really liked the Miami Vice deal that Ryan Truex and Sam Hunt did, where they were driving a Supra and they were wearing like the pastel outfits. That looked like a lot of fun. So that's kind of the thing that's the kind of thing Lastbro and I have thought of doing there too. But one of these days that'll be fun for sure. Let's see here. Let me jump back to the top here. Michael Jensen, first of all, thank you so much for your super chat here, $10. Homestead proved it should be the final race. 33 cars on the lead lap. Is that a record? Other than Connor Jones needing to be suspended, it was a great weekend. Exactly. Yeah, completely agree. I don't know if that's a record. It probably is. It sure seems like that would be pretty close to it. Yeah, 33 on the lead lap. They're down to Chastain. Again, very low attrition, which Homestead usually does have low attrition. And as I mentioned earlier there, we've had a number of races that had, drivers complete 200 or more laps and still finish in last at Homestead. I think there were like 9 others before today. So it's pretty consistent on that. But yeah, not sure if that's a record, but I'm sure somebody has that information on hand to figure that out there. But it's certainly unusual. Usually when you have these long green flag runs and low attrition, you're going to have several drivers off the lead lap. But the way the cautions fell, I guess, with the wave around and so forth, that's just kind of how it shook out. Yeah, kudos to them on that. And again, thank you for the super chat here for sure. And Spencer, thank you for your super chat as well. Oh, I got a note below yours as well. It says, "Let's celebrate their first Super on a live stream." Let's do indeed. And again, I know I read this earlier, but again, thank you again for mentioning the 7-way tie in the Xfinity Championship. Sam Mayer, that's the one to watch. Is the number one going to be also the number 38? That's going to be the thing to find out. Man, I don't know. We're going to have to do something with that. I'm sure Sam would probably not be too pleased, but if he wins the championship at the same time, he's probably not going to mind too much. And just be like, hey, you won this also. It's like getting the championship and the Goodies Headache Award at the same time, but that could always be the situation. But again, thank you for your super chat there earlier. And Bowser Jr. XD, thank you for yours as well. The second closest Cup finish at Homestead behind 2005. Yes, that amazing photo finish with Greg Biffle and Mark Martin. Thank you for calling that back up there as well. It's an amazing, and again, having this many different leaders at the finish of the race and how crazy it turned out there. Tremendous effort. And yeah, one of the closest finishes in the Cup Series race at Homestead. That was certainly something to follow here at the same time. Let's see. Oh, Bowser, thank you for mentioning here about the option tires. Yeah, that I overlooked that coming into this race here today. I know it got mentioned in the broadcast, and I'm sure when they did it at Richmond, they did it with the possibility of doing it for Martinsville, wanting that race to be as competitive as it could be. But yes, mentioning here, it's going to be based off the option from Richmond. Okay. I believe left sides are the same and right sides are softer. Okay, so it's going to be options for just the right side tires. The same and softer than the option tires. Right side is same as the option tire. Lefts are softer. Okay. I don't know. It'll be cleared up this week, but regardless, I mean, we saw such a good race at Richmond this year. But I know the trick is Richmond gives you a lot of room. So, you know, when you have faster traffic and slower traffic, you can navigate your way through it. It's going to be tricky to do that at Martinsville. Now, I say this within the same knowledge of what we also had this weekend, which was apparently a very competitive Miata MX-5 race out there. So kudos to that. Like Ryan Vargas was tweeting about that. We got some posts there from, I guess Mav TV was covering it, or Flow Racing, or whoever it was. But that looked like it was just a blast out there. It seemed like they were having a great time. They sounded like the old Goodies Dash cars out there. Those guys put on a show wherever they go. But what a great get. And especially what a great teaser going into next week. So yeah, we definitely saw some physical racing there. If we're going to get anything close to that in the Cup Series side, yeah, that'll be something interesting. Is it also the option tire for Xfinity and trucks? Because it's a triple header this weekend. Or are they just doing the option for Cup? I'd assume it would just be for Cup, but I don't know if they're going to take on, because they got to do the whole different tire style and all that other stuff, different wheels and so forth. I'm not sure. I got to look it up, but I don't. I actually overlooked that coming into this weekend. But again, it'll be interesting, and whatever it will be. Hopefully, it's going to be more competitive than it's been the last couple of years, because the Martinsville races have really struggled with the next gen car, and it's just the worst possible combination. And it's unfortunate because Martinsville is one I've always circled on my calendar. I always think it's always so wonderfully intimate. It always feels like you're so close to the cars and the traffic and everything that's happening. I think the paint schemes always look good there. The track always looks so clean and manicured. And then at the end, you got tire marks everywhere. You got biff marks on the wall. You got debris everywhere. The smell of rear axle grease in the middle of the infield. It's just tremendous. It just goes through this fascinating transformation through all of that. And I guess you could say that of a lot of tracks, but I think Martinsville shows it better probably than any other track on the circuit. So that's always interesting. Let's see. Okay, we got that already. Yeah, we talked about that. Oh, what category do we have here for trivia? Pretty sure it's just Cup. Okay, that would make sense. Yes, thank you for mentioning as well, Bowser. Yeah, Justin Bonsignor won his 4th modified title and is now the 2nd winningest driver on the tour behind the late Mike Stefanik. Right on. Okay, fantastic. 45 wins. Congratulations to Justin on that. I don't really follow the modified series that much. I know I should. I'd love to see one in person. We were close to doing that when Last Pro was over in New Hampshire, but we need to make our way back out there and see some of the modifieds, because I know they put a fantastic battle out there. Oh, Tony Baldwin Jr.'s kid won the pole and finished 7th. Wow, fantastic. 3-way tie for trivia. Do we have a Okay, what are the categories? Wild card teams and drivers. Okay. Let's see. Oh, we got one for Pitts now from Jude Fernandez. Let's see. Okay, I think that's probably a four-way tie now, isn't it? Yeah, four-way tie. Alrighty. We'll just pick one. Let's see. Oh, wild card. There we go. There's a tiebreaker. Wild card it is. Alrighty. Here we go. Oh, this is perfect timing with the World Series this weekend. Man, how good is that? Thank goodness Shohei Ohtani's okay. I know there was a report earlier on social media that says he's expected to play for Game 3. As I mentioned on social media, I don't like the Yankees, and I really, really, really don't like the Dodgers. Having pulled for the Giants and the A's up here, I just can't go for an LA team. But man, they put on a great show. These first two games have been fantastic. I'm not at all an expert in the sport, certainly not enough to confidently talk about it. I know we did a little bit last couple of weeks ago, and even then that was a bit of a challenge. Between the walk-off grand slam and then yesterday, I mean, my goodness, they loaded the bases. They pretty much just had their feet to the fire, and it could have gone the other way. The Yankees put a scare in the Dodgers, and I think we're going to have a really good series. I don't know if it's going to reach quite the heights of like the 2001 series, but man, I mean, it's been really enjoyable. I wasn't planning on watching the whole thing this year. I haven't really watched the World Series the last couple of years, even though we've had kind of some surprising champions here. We got the Nationals finally have won, the Rangers have won. May the best team win on this one here. If the Dodgers do it, hey, they've earned it. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. Now they go to New York. They got the turtlenecks. They're gonna have the turtlenecks and the pinstripes and all that. I mean, yeah, there's an aura to that for sure. I still am not happy that they tore down the old Yankee Stadium. I think it's a historical landmark. It should have stayed, but I know that the new stadium has elements from it and stuff. But I don't know. But it's gonna be rocking on what's Monday's Game 3. It's gonna be something. It's gonna be something, man. Oh my goodness. So enjoyable. I just came into Game 1 in the 7th inning. I'm so glad I watched it because it was Last Bro came up here too. We were just watching the end of it. It was thrilling. I wasn't expecting it to be that close. But man, oh man. Looks like we have a call on inspection already. All right, let me get that too. Oh, I'm sorry. The question did have to do with baseball. First question is, what baseball team does Dale Earnhardt cheer for? That is the first question. What baseball team does Dale Earnhardt cheer for? There's your first question here. We get Pockrus's thing on this. Yes. Okay. Yes, indeed. Cup Tech complete. No issues. Reddick is the winner. Busch and Gibbs' car to R&D. I see the question on here, Andrew's question in here. Yes, what happened to Gibbs and Chastain? Gibbs lost a fourth gear in his transmission. So he lost it on a restart. Originally, it seemed like he was going to have to be stuck in fifth gear. Then he got the back of Haley going into turn 3, and that must have done a number on his car, too. He lost multiple laps on pit road. Apparently, they said he only lost fourth gear. They was kind of limping around to the finish. As to what happened to Chastain, I have no idea. I didn't listen to him all day. Does anybody in the chat know what happened to Chastain? We talked about that earlier because he got last on the lead lap. Something must have happened, but he wasn't so far back. But again, congratulations to Reddick. He advances to the championship 4, and your last place article will be on J.J. Yaley, so that'll be up later tonight. I still have to start it. That's what the challenging thing is. Usually when last place is settled earlier, I'm able to kind of get a start on the article. Right now, I just have an outline I'm just looking at on my screen right here. But there you go. What baseball team does Dale Earnhardt cheer for? Let me try my second screen again. I want to see if I can get this to work. Where is that? It's definitely plugged in. I'm looking at it right here. It must have not been plugged in when I started the stream, and so it thinks it's not working. That must be what happened. I wiggle these cables and we'll just try it anyway. It's not gonna do anything sideways with it. Okay, it did the little boot up sound. Is it doing this here? Are we gonna try it here? No, it's just not going to do it. Boy, I don't know what happened there. All right, well, we'll get that figured out because I want to do more. I want to do more visual aids on this show here, especially if we're talking about standings and everything. But yeah, what baseball team does Dale Earnhardt cheer for? That is once again the question here. A lot of you guys saying the Braves, the Atlanta Braves. You got one for the Indians here. Let's see. Here we go again. What baseball team does Dale Earnhardt cheer for? It is indeed the Atlanta Braves. You guys got it. You're too good. You're too good. Just noticed the camera is up too high. That's right. I had it adjusted when I was showing the shirt. Alrighty. Atlanta Braves. Next question. What driver was dubbed Chicken Snake by his crew chief, Tony Glover? What driver was dubbed Chicken Snake by his crew chief, Tony Glover? That is our next question. If it's the South before the 90s, it's the Braves. John Boy's account of the Dorktown Falcons series. There's the Braves merch. We're all over the place in the Southeast, especially the Carolinas. I did not know that. I haven't watched that John Boy's video. I got to check that out. By the way, big appreciate the recommendation on the military. What was it? The Drachfanel channel. I still haven't pronounced it correctly. The one that was doing the ones on warships. I saw the one on the French battleships that were the pre-dreadnoughts. Very comprehensive, very interesting. So thank you for the recommendation on that last week. Because I have been watching some of his content. What driver was dubbed Chicken Snake by his crew chief, Tony Glover? That is the question. Commanders just beat the Bears? Yeah, what are in the NFL? So thank you for the mention on the Bills there, too. I just picked up a new Bills hat this past week here. I'll tell you what, people need to stop making such good merch these last couple of weeks. These have been a little. I try not to get out of control on that stuff there, but there's just been too much good stuff. My goodness. You had the Dale Jr. stuff came out, and then you had the Ricky Rudd Hall of Fame deal come out, and now I've won 2 picks in a row, so we're doing that. Goodness. Oh my, wow. Bills shellacked the Seahawks 31-10. All right. That's more like it. That's more like it. Not only beat the teams you're expected to beat, but yeah, Seahawks are tough. Like, I mean, at least traditionally they've been. Maybe they're having kind of an off year this year, but good. Oh, wow, the Raiders almost beat the Chiefs. I don't know how the heck they let that happen. The script came in late, I guess. Chargers 26, Saints 8. Don't know what happened there. Oh, man. I don't know. Haven't followed as much beyond the Bills here this year, but we got the red zone here, so we'll definitely be catching up on that again, especially once the season wraps up. Yeah, it's been a great time to be a sports collector. Yeah, exactly, sports merch collector. It has. It's been tricky. Man, if they do a shirt for the Bobby Allison thing, I mean, I like this one too. I mean, this is just a reprint of his 88 championship. I don't know if I showed it well enough on screen, but I'll show it here again. There you go. Kind of just love that old Buick. I mean, when they did that throwback version of it that Matt DiBenedetto ran at Darlington, that was really good. The Bills got cursed by Brandon Perna and his oversized novelty wheel. Brandon Perna, he's the Broncos guy, isn't he? Or is that somebody else? It and its much smaller predecessor have an eerily good record at making teams lose that week. Well, there you go. Okay. Yeah. No, there's been a lot of good stuff. I'll tell you what, people that are producing merch right now, I mean, they're doing such a great job. I love the stuff. Again, Ryan Williams, Harris Liu. I know Ryan Daly's been doing some stuff here too, at least with the paint schemes. They've just been doing a fantastic job. My goodness. I mean, Lou in particular has just been on a heater here. He did the Mark Martin thing, which I think made Slapshoes short circuit because that race means so much to him there with that 98 Winston deal. Just tremendous stuff. I mean, one of these days, I don't know. I need to elevate my game over at my website here one of these days here because I've done some stuff, but I am not even in the same galaxy as those guys in terms of graphic design or anything. I just slam stuff together here for like the website here and all that. Yeah, that would be the case. The 500. I say the 400? Yeah, I mean the 500 for Bobby Allison there. Yeah, Zachary. Yeah, that one's I'm thinking of. Yeah, the one where he won the Winston in that car, the Eagle One deal. You'll definitely see more of the 2001 version of that in the next 500 Days episode. That's going to be coming up here in a bit. Oh, and how good is I'm seeing the post here on too. I didn't mention this at the very top of the show, but how good was it to see Michael Jordan that excited on pit road? He genuinely loves this sport. Like, I mean, again, and he's been involved in it a long time. Visiting Haas Ellington's shop as a kid and everything. You saw that in that interview where he's celebrating with Reddick. Man, he just, and yeah, he's not going to be sitting back there, in the background there on the pit box. He wanted to be right on pit wall, seeing all the action, being as close to it as possible. He's just living the dream right now. And I know that there's all this stuff going on with the lawsuit. I don't want to pretend that's not happening, because it absolutely is. And I think it's going to lead to some interesting developments one way or the other. We'll see what happens. But for right now, I mean, it's about celebrating the now right now. And it's really cool. And it means a lot. I don't think it's a small thing for him to say that, when he's not playing basketball anymore and he's getting that enjoyment out of owning this team, that it's filling that void. That's a big void to fill. And so kudos to him. And I'm sure Denny feels a little mixed, losing the race there to the team that he and Michael co-founded. But man, I mean, it's a tough competition out there, and it's cool to see. So, yeah. And this is, it's good. It's good. It's really good. So, yeah, I've just seen that video again posted on the Beast Unleashed channel here. Oh, that's so good. Got to retweet that. Let's see. MBM also posted some good pictures there from Homestead here about Chad Fincham here. Good adjustments through the race, and Chad Fincham got to the checkered flag for just the second time in his Cup career so far. We will keep building. Yeah, again, congratulations to him for getting to the finish. I mean, it was 81 degrees at the track, and a challenging day there too. Did a fine job out there. Yeah, Norris, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you've had celebrity owners that they don't even show up at the track, much less celebrating with the team and all that. I mean, yeah, it's legit. I mean, we've talked about this before with Michael Jordan. Yeah, he goes way back in the sport. Not to say that you have to be involved in the team. You don't have to. Absolutely. If people we've seen, and it's been so refreshing to hear people that have been just recently exposed to the sport and have fallen in love with it. Great. Hey, the more the merrier. Come right on. But when you have somebody that has a long history in the sport and you see that on there too, yeah, that would be cool as well. What driver was dubbed Chicken Snake by his crew chief, Tony Glover? The answer is indeed Sterling Marlin. I think a lot of you got that one. Marlin is indeed the answer. I said the championship. Okay, yeah. No, thank you for correcting me. Their Ultimate 23 Dragon. Alrighty. Yeah, Sterling Marlin. Oh, pretty much all you guys got it. Bowser Jr. XD just ahead of Zachary Leffler and mostly blind Mitch and Norris and so forth. Alrighty. Let's see here. Let's see. Kind of checking up here as well. I thought I saw something else here. I was just making sure I didn't miss it. Okay. No, I think we're good on that as well. Alrighty. Oh, here we go. This actually ties in with the Mark Martin thing. How many race segments is the Winston divided into? So we're thinking late 90s here. How many race segments is the Winston divided into? Now, there's a tricky question because, of course, it's changed a lot of times. But again, this is like 98, 99, thereabouts when this was made. So I'll read that again. How many race segments is the Winston divided into is the question. Michael Jordan's too tall to be a driver. Yeah, you'd have to kind of adjust things a little bit for sure. Yeah. October is just a fantastic month for sports. I know we're just down to the last couple days of it here, but, again, that combination of NFL heating up, the baseball postseason, the World Series, and, the closing weeks of the NASCAR season, whether it's full season or not. Yeah, again, great deal there. Piece of metal. Yeah, I like your solution there as to which team to pull for there. Yeah, no, I still like to see the games going. I like seeing, I mean, it's been said more articulately by people that follow the sport more closely, but the cinema of postseason baseball is just beautiful. It's a beautiful sport. It really is. Um, I haven't had the room for it in my background. I've gone to a few A's games. Like I said, I mean, the last one I'd been to before recently was 5 years ago because we moved out of the Bay Area. But it's just a different. It's a different. It is a beautiful sport. So and yeah, and really, in the postseason, if it's you're not invested in one team or the other, I think it's more enjoyable actually. You can just enjoy just being epic. So there you go. How many race segments is the Winston divided into? I guess it's for 3. How do you mean stages? Well, that's what you would think. That this thing says segments, but yeah, it didn't anticipate stage racing quite that keenly. But there you go. How many segments is the Winston divided into? And the answer is 3. 3 is the answer. Those of you guessed 4 would be very close too. 3 is the correct answer. Sean Doyle was the first one on the button there. Bowser Jr. XD as well. 3 is the correct dude. Oh, pretty much all of you got that there. All righty. And we'll wrap up here. We'll probably just do 1 or 2. Oh, we're already up to, wow, goodness. Okay. Almost up to 2 hours. Let me do a couple more here, and then we'll wrap up here as well. Here we go. What driver earned all district honors as a linebacker at a Texas high school? We read that again. What driver earned all district honors as a linebacker at a Texas high school? I know I feel a little bit off. My allergies are coming back here again. Goodness. Okay. What driver earned all district honors as a linebacker at a Texas high school? Excuse me for a moment. There we go. All right. What driver earned all district honors as a linebacker at a Texas high school is the question. I guess it's for Terry Labonte and Steve Grissom and Bobby Labonte. Yep, Winston Cupwater. I'm trying to find like a sticker that would say that on here. I would add that too. I got my ketchup sticker and everything on here. But yeah, I like I like what I got on here so far though. I got the Museum of American Speed. I can't believe I missed seeing Jimmy Johnson's Busch car there. I didn't know they had that other room by the entryway. I mean, kudos to everybody that was sharing pictures of that this week. But we got a reason to go back. That's good because I liked Kansas. I know that's in Nebraska, but it's on the way down there. But yeah, very enjoyable. What driver earned all district honors as a linebacker at a Texas high school? And the answer is Bobby Hillen Jr. Bobby Hillen Jr. There we go. We got to go a little bit further or further in a different direction here. I don't think anybody got that. Terry Labonte, Steve Grissom. I think Grissom's from Alabama, I think. And then Bobby Labonte, not quite. The Labontes are a good guess. But the answer is Bobby Hillen Jr., BHJ. The old, the one that had the helmet thrown at him. All right. Austin Green's competing at COTA next weekend for TA2 to round out the season. Yeah, that Homestead race was. I gotta admit, I'm kind of anxious to watch replays of it again. Doggone it! I need to get the second screen figured out. I'm gonna do that after the show tonight and see if we can make sure that that's working because we did have a little bit of problems with the main computer here coming into the show tonight. It wouldn't log in properly, and I just barely got it going for the start. So it might be something going on with that, but we'll get that figured out because I want to get that straightened out, certainly for these last couple of weeks here. And we'll do some off-season streams here as well. We'll go into that a little bit later here in the meantime. Bobby Hill. Let me do one more question here, and we'll wrap up with this. Yeah, let's see. Maybe not that one. Here we go. This is a good one. How many drivers have won the Busch Clash from the pole through 1997? Don't look it up. Try to guess. How many drivers have won the Busch Clash from the pole through 1997? That is the question. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Yeah. Who is Skid did a great job on Twitter here showing some of the exhilarating finishes this year. It's like, yeah, it's been pretty good. When it's been great, it's been great. When it's been it's been And when it's, everything else has been kind of in between. But, hey, just something else. And I got to listen to Lee Diffie's call. That's why I wanted to play the clip earlier, because I wanted to hear Lee Diffie's call, because I couldn't, Lastbro and I were too busy screaming at the TV there at the end. But yeah. Hey there, Racer 10106 2000. Thank you for tuning in as well. I'm afraid we're just wrapping up here for today, but you do have a chance to guess on the question here. How many drivers have won the Busch Clash from the pole through 1997? We got guesses for 2 and 6 and 5 and 4. Everything in between. If you're ever near Gettysburg, the Eastern Museum of Motor Racing is a Bill Elliott Thunderbird that nearly flipped at Talladega in 96. Oh, wait, that's in Gettysburg? Shoot, we just went through there on the East Coast a while back. We stopped at the Friendlies out there. It was after dark. I'm sure any museum we were near would have been closed by then. But I'll keep that in mind. I'd like to do some East Coast stuff again next year. That's kind of what I'm looking ahead to. Just got to save up the vacation hours and figure things out. That's why we've kind of done things a little different this season. But I think we're heading in the right direction. How many drivers have won the Busch Clash from the pole through 1997? And the answer is 3. 3 is the answer. Didn't do the East Coast roll on 3 as easily. 611 Hornet, looks like you were the first one on that. Glenn 7000, I believe so. Let me see. Take care, Andrew. Thank you for tuning in tonight. I'm sure you've already checked out, but that's okay. Alrighty, 3 is indeed the correct answer. Alrighty, well, that will do it for the show tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Let's see. Okay, well, hang on. I like doing it the other way here. So, the next, the website here, of course, is lastcar.info. The Twitter is @LastcarOnBrock. The Patreon is patreon.com/LastcarOnBrock. Our next show is going to be next Sunday after the Cup Series race in Martinsville, when we will know who the championship for will be in all 3 series. We have a triple header on tap, starting with the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Cup Series. We will talk about all 3 on the show. We will see how the option tires work out for the Cup Series. We will see what storylines to expect for Phoenix, and if anybody's clinched a championship certificate. Big thanks to the folks over at Brad Smith's team that accepted our ARCA certificate earlier this week. I was contacted by the team's crew chief there, and that one was sent out. So it's already that time of the year. So we're going to find out what's going to happen here very soon. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And also for my American viewers, make sure you go vote. Please vote. I'm not going to tell you who for. That's not my place, but please make sure that you do vote. It is exceedingly important as we come down to it. So I will see you all next Sunday. Have a great week, everyone. Have a safe week, and I'll see you all next time. Where's the button? There's the button.